Hello and welcome to the cozy world of Pokemon. In tonight's video, we will explore interesting details about the Eeveelutions, one of the most iconic evolutionary families in Pokemon history. From design origins and hidden mechanics to competitive strategies and cultural impact across generations, these 8 evolutions have captivated fans for decades. Before we begin exploring each form, take a moment to leave a comment below. Tell us which Pokemon has always been your favorite, the one that feels like it belongs to your journey. And let us know what time it is, where you are in the world right now. Whether it's late at night as you're winding down or early morning as your day takes shape, we'd love to know you're here with us. Eevee has remained one of the most iconic Pokemon in the entire franchise, not because of legendary status or overwhelming power, but because its biology represents pure potential. From the moment it appeared in Generation 1, Eevee stood out as something different, a Pokemon whose genetic structure is famously unstable, allowing it to evolve into multiple distinct forms depending on environmental triggers, emotional bonds, or exposure to elemental energy. This wasn't just a gameplay gimmick, it was designed into Eevee's lore from the very beginning. Game Freak planned the original 3 evolutions, Vaporeon, Jolteon, and Flareon, during the earlier stages of Pokemon Red and Green's development, building the concept of branching evolutionary paths into the game's core identity. What makes Eevee so fascinating is how it manages to symbolize adaptability without ever feeling incomplete on its own. Its design blends the soft features of a fennec fox, the curiosity and posture of a domestic cat, and the gentle, alert ears of a rabbit, creating something that feels both naturally animal-like and distinctly Pokemon. This hybrid approach gave Eevee an approachable, cozy appearance that made it immediately beloved by players. Ken Sugimori's original concept art emphasized innocence and friendliness, and that design philosophy has remained untouched across decades, proving that Eevee's visual identity was perfect from the start. In Generation 1, Eevee carried a sense of rarity and exclusivity that elevated its status beyond a typical encounter. Players could only obtain a single Eevee in Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow, either as a gift from an NPC in Celadon City, or by spending hard-earned coins at the game corner, making every decision about its evolution feel genuinely significant. In Pokemon Yellow, this significance was amplified when your rival chose Eevee as his starter, allowing it to evolve based on the outcomes of your early battles. If you won more, his Eevee became Jolteon. If you lost more, it became Flareon. If results were even, it became Vaporeon. This dynamic system made Eevee feel like something capable of growth and change in response to experience. The mystery of why Eevee evolves the way it does has fascinated fans for years. Elemental stones trigger some transformations through concentrated energy, while others require happiness during specific times of day. Proximity to moss-covered rocks or ice-laden landmarks, or affection built through direct interaction. Each method tells a different story about evolution, whether through environmental adaptation, emotional bonds, or connection to place. From a statistical perspective, Eevee sits in an interesting space of balance. Its base stats hover mostly around 50 to 55, with special defense reaching 65 and special attack dipping to 45, giving it a relatively even distribution that reflects its uncommitted nature. It's not specialized, because it hasn't yet decided what it will become. What makes Eevee visually distinctive extends into small details that reward close observation. Starting in Generation 4, male and female Eevees gained different tail patterns, with females displaying a gentle heart-shaped notch at the tip, while males retain a jagged, irregular shape. Eevee's shiny form trades its warm brown fur for silvery white colouring, making it one of the most sought-after shinies in the franchise. Even Eevee's cry carries thoughtful detail, shifting slightly depending on which evolution it becomes, suggesting transformation affects not just appearance, but voice. In later generations, particularly Let's Go, Eevee received unique voice acting instead of synthesized cries, with Aoi Yuki providing the voice that unified its presence across games and anime. As the series evolved, so did Eevee's mechanical presence. Partner Eevee in Let's Go introduced exclusive moves representing each evolutionary type, such as Bouncy Bubble, Sizzly Slide, and Buzzy Buzz, reinforcing that this Eevee contains all possibilities at once. Gigantamax Eevee in Generation 8 transformed it into something overwhelmingly fluffy, with a massive collar reminiscent of older, rounder designs, and its ability to cause infatuation regardless of gender became a playful nod to universal appeal. In Generation 7, Eevee gained Extreme Evo Boost, a Z-move that sharply raises all stats at once, creating rare moments where unevolved Eevee becomes genuinely threatening in competitive play, especially when combined with baton pass strategies. Beyond games, Eevee has become a secondary mascot for Pokémon, standing just behind Pikachu in cultural recognition and marketing presence. In Japan especially, Eevee merchandise rivals Pikachu's, with entire product lines and Pokémon Center exclusives built around its evolutionary family. This status comes from what Eevee represents: a fantasy of choice and personal expression where each trainer finds their own path. Eevee doesn't tell you who to be, it asks who you want to become. That emotional depth has created one of the franchise's most devoted fan bases. Even in spin-offs like Pokémon Conquest, Eevee's adaptability made it a natural fit. And across trading cards, plushies, and collaborations, it maintains presence through genuine affection rather than forced marketing. Whether as a starter in Let's Go, a gift Pokémon in main series games, or a plush representing childhood memories, Eevee has become more than just a Pokédex entry. It's a companion representing growth, transformation, and the quiet promise that change is always possible. At its core, Eevee embodies what makes Pokémon special: the idea that potential matters, that choices shape outcomes, and that transformation comes in many forms depending on circumstance, environment, and connection. Vaporeon has remained one of the most iconic evolutions since Generation 1, not just because it was part of the original evolutionary trio, but because its design and abilities capture something genuinely fascinating about water-type Pokémon. Unlike most aquatic creatures in the franchise, Vaporeon's biology goes beyond simply living in water. Its Pokédex entries describe it as having a molecular composition similar to water itself, allowing it to literally melt into liquid and become nearly invisible when submerged. This isn't just flavor text, it reflects a core design concept that Vaporeon exists somewhere between solid organism and fluid element, a creature whose body can shift states depending on its surroundings. The inspiration for Vaporeon's design comes from a blend of mermaids, sea lions, and fish, creating a sleek, streamlined silhouette that feels both elegant and functional. Its membrane-like fins and frilled tail give it an aquatic grace that distinguishes it from real-world animals. The fins are thin, almost translucent, suggesting they function more like control surfaces than traditional limbs. The tail in particular acts as both a rudder for steering and a propeller for propulsion, with Pokédex entries noting that Vaporeon can detect subtle shifts in water currents using its tail fin, allowing it to navigate even in murky or turbulent conditions. The pale blue colouring of its body, combined with the darker blue frills along its head, tail, and back, creates a colour gradient that mirrors light refracting through water, making Vaporeon one of the most visually cohesive water-type designs in the franchise. Even its ear fins, which resemble webbed appendages, contribute to the overall aesthetic of a creature perfectly adapted to aquatic life. From a competitive standpoint, Vaporeon has always been one of the bulkiest and most reliable evolutions, thanks largely to its massive base 130 HP stat, the highest of any evolution and one of the highest HP stats among non-legendary Pokémon in the early generations. This bulk made Vaporeon an instant favourite for defensive strategies, especially in generations 2 and 3, where it became known for its acid armor and rest combination, a strategy that turned it into an almost unkillable wall. Acid armor sharply raised its defense, rest fully healed it, and cured status conditions, and with enough setup, Vaporeon could stall out entire teams. Baton pass strategies also became popular, with Vaporeon using acid armor or aqua ring to boost its stats or sustain itself before passing those benefits to a teammate. In later generations, Vaporeon's hidden ability, hydration, gave it even more utility by automatically curing status conditions at the end of each turn during rain, making it a perfect fit for rain-based teams. Combined with its naturally high special attack and access to powerful moves like Surf, Scald, Ice Beam, and Shadow Ball, Vaporeon became a versatile defensive pivot capable of wearing down opponents through chip damage and status effects. Wish passing also became one of Vaporeon's signature roles, using Wish to heal itself or teammates, and then either staying in to absorb hits or switching out to provide support. This defensive utility, combined with its ability to function as a special attacker when needed, kept Vaporeon relevant in competitive play across multiple generations, a rare feat for an evolution that hasn't received a Mega Evolution or regional variant. Vaporeon's shiny form is one of the most visually distinct among the evolutions, trading its standard light blue colouring for a rich purple hue that gives it an almost regal, mystical appearance. This colour shift has made shiny Vaporeon one of the most sought-after shinies in the evolutionary family, especially among collectors who appreciate the dramatic contrast. In terms of accessibility, Vaporeon was also the easiest Eeveelution to obtain in Generation 1 because water stones were relatively abundant compared to thunderstones and firestones, with one available on the SS Anne and another purchasable at the Celadon department store. This accessibility meant many players chose Vaporeon as their first evolution, cementing its place in early Pokémon memories. In the anime, Vaporeon made memorable appearances through Sakura, one of the kimono girls in Johto, whose Vaporeon showcased grace, power, and loyalty in battle. The kimono girl's evolutions became iconic representations of each evolution's personality, with Vaporeon embodying calm strength and fluid adaptability. Vaporeon also appeared briefly as one of the Pokémon owned by Misty's sisters at the Cerulean Gym, reinforcing its association with water-type expertise. In Pokémon Colosseum, Vaporeon became available as one of the starter choices alongside Espeon and Umbreon, giving players the option to build their team around a bulky water type from the beginning. Even in beta development materials, early sprites and concept art show that Vaporeon was always intended to be sleek and aquatic, with its design remaining remarkably consistent from the earliest drafts to the final game. One less family-friendly aspect of Vaporeon's internet presence is the infamous Vaporeon copypasta, a meme that gained notoriety in certain online communities for inappropriate reasons, though most fans simply acknowledge it as an unfortunate footnote in an otherwise beloved Pokémon's history. What makes Vaporeon endure as one of the most iconic evolutions is the way it balances elegance, functionality, and competitive viability. It's not just a beautiful water type, it's a reliable partner that can adapt to multiple roles depending on what a team needs. Whether melting into water to avoid danger, passing wishes to heal teammates, or simply outlasting opponents with incredible bulk and recovery options. Vaporeon embodies the adaptability that defines the Eeveelution family. Decades after its debut, it remains a fan favorite, a testament to strong design, thoughtful mechanics, and the quiet, graceful power of water itself. Jolteon has remained one of the most iconic evolutions since Generation 1, representing pure speed and electric power in a design that perfectly captures the essence of lightning given physical form. What makes Jolteon instantly recognizable is its spiky, jagged silhouette, a stark contrast to the smooth, flowing curves of Vaporeon or the soft fluffiness of Flareon. Every spike on Jolteon's body serves a purpose. These aren't just aesthetic choices, but actual charged needles that can stand on end when Jolteon builds up static electricity. And according to Pokédex entries, Jolteon can fire these electrified hairs at opponents as a defensive mechanism. The design inspiration pulls heavily from lightning bolt shapes and porcupine quills, creating a Pokémon that looks sharp, angular, and constantly crackling with energy. Its pale yellow coloring with white accents mimics the bright flash of electricity, and the spiky ruff around its neck gives it an aggressive, alert appearance that communicates speed and danger. Even Jolteon's ears are pointed and alert, always standing upright, as if constantly listening for threats or opportunities. This angular design philosophy extends to its limbs and tail. Everything about Jolteon's body language suggests motion, readiness, and explosive power. The Pokédex repeatedly emphasizes Jolteon's ability to store massive amounts of electrical energy in its fur, with some entries claiming it can hold charges of up to 10,000 volts, releasing them in devastating bursts during battle or when threatened. This stored electricity causes Jolteon's fur to stand on end naturally, creating the permanently spiky appearance that defines its silhouette. From a competitive standpoint, Jolteon became an instant standout in Generation 1 and has remained relevant across multiple generations thanks to its exceptional base, Yun 30 speed stat, the highest of any Eeveelution and one of the fastest among non-legendary Pokémon in the early games. This blazing speed made Jolteon a natural choice for offensive strategies, outspeeding nearly everything in its tier, and hitting hard with powerful special attacks like Thunderbolt, Thunder, and Shadow Ball. In Generation 1 specifically, Jolteon was widely considered the best evolution for competitive play because electric types were highly valuable, Thunderstone was reasonably accessible, and Jolteon's speed allowed it to outpace most threats while dealing consistent damage. Its ability to paralyze opponents with Thunder Wave before they could move, then follow up with Pin Missile for coverage against grass types, made it a versatile threat that could adapt to multiple situations. In later generations, Jolteon gained access to Volt Switch, a move that allowed it to pivot out of unfavorable matchups while dealing damage, turning it into one of the best momentum control Pokémon in competitive formats. This pivoting strategy became central to Jolteon's identity, using its speed to scout opponents, deal chip damage, and switch out safely before the opponent could retaliate. Jolteon's hidden ability, Quick Feet, boosts its speed even further when afflicted with a status condition, a thematically perfect ability that unfortunately sees little competitive use because Jolteon's other abilities, Volt Absorb and its signature speed, are generally more practical. Despite this, Quick Feet reinforces the design concept that Jolteon becomes even faster under pressure, channeling discomfort into pure velocity. Jolteon's shiny form trades its standard yellow coloring for a vibrant lime green, creating one of the most visually striking shinies among the Eeveelutions, and making it highly sought after by collectors who appreciate the bold color shift. The green hue gives shiny Jolteon an almost neon electric glow that feels even more energetic than the original palette. In terms of evolution accessibility, Thunderstones were moderately difficult to obtain in Generation 1, with one available in the Rock Tunnel and another near the power plant, making Jolteon slightly rarer than Vaporeon, but more accessible than Flareon in the early games. This scarcity added to its perceived value among players who wanted a fast, reliable electric type. In the anime, Jolteon appeared through Sparky, one of the Kimono Girls in Johto, whose Jolteon showcased incredible speed and agility in battle, embodying the quick, precise fighting style that defines the species. Jolteon also made brief appearances in connection with Lolthum Surge's gym, reinforcing its association with electric-type specialists and trainers who value speed and offensive pressure. Even Jolteon's cry was carefully designed to reflect its nature, featuring a sharp, crackling sound that mimics electrical discharge, a detail that makes its presence in battle feel instantly recognizable, even without visuals. What's particularly interesting about Jolteon's move pool is its historical lack of strong physical electric moves, despite its name literally including jolt, which implies impact and physical force. For years, Jolteon relied entirely on special attacks, because physical electric moves like Wild Charge didn't exist until later generations, and even when they were introduced, Jolteon's attack stat was too low to make use of them, creating an ironic disconnect between its aggressive, physical-looking design and its special-focused battle style. What makes Jolteon endure as one of the most beloved evolutions is the way it embodies speed, precision, and electric power in a package that feels both dangerous and elegant. It's not bulky like Vaporeon or defensively oriented like Umbreon. Instead, it thrives on hitting first, hitting hard, and staying ahead of opponents through sheer velocity. Whether crackling with stored electricity, pivoting in and out of battle with Volt Switch, or simply outrunning every threat on the field, Jolteon represents the thrill of speed and the raw power of lightning channeled into a loyal, spiky companion. Decades after its debut, it remains a fan favorite for players who value offense, momentum, and the satisfaction of always moving first. Flareon has remained one of the most visually beloved evolutions since Generation 1, yet it carries the unfortunate reputation of being the weakest competitively, a disconnect that has fascinated and frustrated fans for decades. What makes Flareon so appealing at first glance is its incredibly fluffy design, inspired heavily by Pomeranians, foxes, and the visual language of fire itself. Its massive collar of fur, flowing mane, and bushy tail create a silhouette that feels warm, soft, and almost huggable, despite the Pokédex repeatedly warning that Flareon's body temperature can reach up to 150 degrees Fahrenheit. This creates one of the most glaring contradictions in Pokémon lore. How can a creature with fur so fluffy and inviting also be hot enough to cause severe burns on contact? The explanation provided in Pokédex entries suggests that Flareon's fur acts as insulation, trapping and storing heat generated by an internal flame sac located inside its body. This flame sac works like a biological furnace, constantly producing thermal energy that Flareon can release in controlled bursts during battle or when threatened. The fur doesn't burn because it's specially adapted to withstand extreme temperatures, functioning more like a heat battery than traditional animal fur. This design choice makes Flareon one of the most unique fire types in the franchise, a creature that doesn't rely on external flames or molten rock, but instead generates and stores heat internally, radiating warmth passively while keeping its flames hidden until needed. The color palette reinforces this theme, with deep reds, warm oranges, and cream-colored accents that mirror fire's natural glow, creating a visually cohesive design that feels both cozy and dangerous. From a competitive standpoint, Flareon has struggled throughout the franchise's history, despite having one of the highest attack stats among all evolutions at base 130, a stat that should theoretically make it a devastating physical attacker. The problem, and the source of years of community jokes and memes, is that Flareon's physical move pool has been historically terrible. In generations 1 through 5, Flareon had access to almost no strong physical fire-type moves, with its best option being Fire Fang, a relatively weak move with only 65 base power. It didn't learn Flare Blitz, the strongest physical fire move in the game, until Generation 6 when it was finally added as a move tutor option in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. This created the infamous Flareon has no moves meme, a phrase that became shorthand for Game Freak's apparent oversight in giving a Pokémon a massive attack stat, but no moves to take advantage of it. Even outside of fire moves, Flareon's coverage options were limited, with access to moves like Bite, Quick Attack, and later Superpower, but nothing that allowed it to function as the physical powerhouse its stats suggested it should be. This led to Flareon being widely regarded as the worst evolution for competitive play, a title it held for years despite having other positive qualities. Its base 110 special defense gives it reasonable bulk on the special side, and its HP stat of 65, while not exceptional, is serviceable for a mid-tier attacker. But without reliable stab moves or diverse coverage, Flareon simply couldn't compete with other fire types or even other Eeveelutions in serious battles. The introduction of its hidden ability, Guts, in Generation 5 finally gave Flareon a niche by boosting its attack stat by 50% when afflicted with a status condition, allowing strategies that intentionally burned or paralyzed Flareon to unlock its full offensive potential. Combined with Facade, a normal type move that doubles in power when the user is statused, Guts Flareon became unexpectedly threatening, though it still struggled with limited fire coverage and remained outclassed by other physical attackers. Flareon's shiny form is one of the more subtle among the Eeveelutions, shifting from its standard red-orange palette to a slightly deeper orange-red hue that many players find difficult to distinguish at a glance. This subtlety has made shiny Flareon less popular among collectors compared to more dramatic shinies like Umbreon or Glaceon, though fans of the color shift appreciate its warmer, more saturated tone. In terms of evolution accessibility, Firestones were moderately available in Generation 1, with one found on the route leading to the Pokemon Mansion on Cinnabar Island, making Flareon slightly harder to obtain than Vaporeon, but easier than Jolteon for most players. In the anime, Flareon appeared through Pyro, one of the kimono girls in Johto, whose Flareon represented loyalty, warmth, and the protective nature of fire when controlled. This portrayal helped soften Flareon's competitive reputation by showcasing it as a reliable companion rather than a battle-focused powerhouse. Flareon's fluff collar has also inspired countless pieces of fan art, plushies, and merchandise, with its soft, rounded design making it one of the most huggable-looking Pokemon in the franchise, despite the lore warning against physical contact. The contradiction between its appearance and its lore, fluffy and inviting versus dangerously hot, has become part of Flareon's charm, creating a Pokemon that feels approachable and cozy in design, but carries hidden danger beneath the surface. Fan theories about Flareon's poor competitive design often speculate that Game Freak either overlooked its move pool during development, or intentionally designed it as a casual player's choice, rather than a competitive option, though no official explanation has ever been provided. What makes Flareon endure, despite its competitive struggles, is the way it balances visual appeal with emotional resonance. It's not the strongest evolution, but it represents warmth, comfort, and loyalty in a package that feels genuinely affectionate. Whether curled up by a campfire, radiating gentle heat on cold nights, or standing protectively beside its trainer. Despite its limitations, Flareon embodies the idea that strength isn't always measured in battle effectiveness. Decades after its debut, it remains a fan favorite for players who value design, personality, and emotional connection over competitive viability, proving that even the worst evolution can still be someone's favorite. Espeon has remained one of the most elegant and beloved evolutions since its introduction in Generation 2, representing psychic power, grace, and the mystical connection between light and consciousness. What makes Espeon instantly recognizable is its sleek, feline design combined with distinctly alien features, creating a Pokemon that feels both familiar and otherworldly. The most striking element of Espeon's design is the red gem embedded in its forehead, which, according to Pokédex entries, functions as a psychic battery that stores and amplifies mental energy. This gem glows faintly when Espeon uses psychic powers, acting as both a power source and a visual indicator of its mental state. The design inspiration for Espeon pulls heavily from Nekomata, a Japanese yokai depicted as a cat with supernatural abilities, and often shown with split or forked tails, which explains Espeon's distinctive two-pronged tail. Additional influences include lynxes, particularly in the large, alert ears and sleek body proportions, combined with an almost extraterrestrial aesthetic in its coloring and smooth, hairless appearance. The pale lavender body with darker purple accents creates a color palette that feels mystical and ethereal, reinforcing Espeon's connection to psychic energy and sunlight. Its split tail isn't just decorative. Pokédex entries mention that Espeon can predict weather changes and sense danger by reading air currents with the sensitive tips of its tail, giving it an early warning system that helps it avoid threats before they materialize. The fine, velvety fur covering Espeon's body is described as being so sensitive that it can detect minute shifts in air pressure, allowing Espeon to sense approaching storms, hidden enemies, or changes in its environment with remarkable precision. Espeon's evolution method was groundbreaking when introduced in Generation 2, requiring high friendship with the player and leveling up during daytime hours, making it the first evolution to incorporate time-based mechanics into its evolution requirements. This daytime evolution requirement creates a thematic parallel with its counterpart Umbreon, which evolves under the same friendship conditions, but only during nighttime, establishing a light and dark duality that became central to Johto's storytelling. The friendship requirement reinforces the idea that Espeon forms through loyalty and emotional bonds rather than environmental exposure, suggesting that psychic power emerges from trust and connection between trainer and Pokémon. This evolution method also tied directly into Generation 2's introduction of the day-night cycle, a feature that made the game world feel more alive and reactive to real-time progression. The sun imagery in Espeon's name, classification as the sun Pokémon, and its association with daylight all emphasize its connection to solar energy, with some Pokédex entries suggesting that Espeon draws power from sunlight to fuel its psychic abilities. From a competitive standpoint, Espeon quickly became one of the most viable evolutions, thanks to its exceptional base, 130 special attack, and solid 110 speed, making it a fast, hard-hitting special attacker capable of overwhelming opponents before they could respond. In Generation 2, Espeon's psychic typing gave it valuable resistances and strong offensive presence, and its access to moves like Psychic, Shadow Ball, and later Signal Beam provided enough coverage to threaten a wide range of opponents. However, Espeon's true competitive dominance didn't arrive until Generation 5, when it received its hidden ability, Magic Bounce, an ability that reflects non-damaging moves back at the opponent. Magic Bounce transformed Espeon into one of the most versatile and threatening Pokémon in competitive play, capable of bouncing back hazards like Stealth Rock, status moves like Thunder Wave, and setup moves like Taunt, making it an invaluable asset for teams that needed hazard control and momentum. This ability made Espeon a staple in early Generation 5 OU tier battles, where it frequently appeared on baton pass chains and offensive teams that valued speed and utility over bulk. Espeon's shiny form is one of the most visually striking among the Eeveelutions, trading its standard lavender coloring for a vibrant lime green that gives it an almost neon, otherworldly appearance. This dramatic color shift has made shiny Espeon one of the most sought-after shinies in the evolutionary family, especially among collectors who appreciate bold, eye-catching palettes. The green coloring also creates an interesting visual connection to shiny Jolteon and shiny Leafeon, forming an unofficial green shiny cluster among the Eeveelutions that fans have noted and celebrated. In the anime, Espeon gained significant recognition through Sakura, one of the kimono girls in Johto, whose Espeon showcased elegance, intelligence, and powerful psychic abilities in battle. Sakura's Espeon became one of the most memorable representations of the species, embodying the calm, composed nature that defines Espeon's personality. Espeon also appeared as the partner of Annabelle, the frontier brain of the Battle Tower in Hoenn, where it demonstrated top-tier competitive battling and reinforced Espeon's reputation as a Pokémon favored by skilled, strategic trainers. These anime appearances helped establish Espeon as not just powerful, but intelligent and perceptive, a Pokémon that fights with precision and awareness rather than brute force. Pokédex entries repeatedly emphasize Espeon's ability to predict events before they occur, sensing danger through psychic waves and using its forked tail to read atmospheric changes. Some entries describe Espeon as being able to predict its opponent's next move with such accuracy that it appears to be psychic, rather than simply perceptive, blurring the line between heightened awareness and genuine precognition. This predictive ability ties back to the Nekomata inspiration, as these yokai were often depicted as possessing supernatural foresight and wisdom beyond normal comprehension. What makes Espeon endure as one of the most beloved evolutions is the way it balances grace, intelligence, and competitive viability in a design that feels both mystical and grounded. It's not bulky or defensive, like Vaporeon or Umbreon. Instead, it thrives on speed, precision, and the ability to control the flow of battle through prediction and utility, whether reflecting hazards with magic bounce, outspeeding threats with its exceptional speed stat, or simply resting in sunlight to recharge its psychic energy. Espeon represents the quiet power of awareness and the elegant strength of a mind attuned to the world around it. Decades after its debut, it remains a fan favorite for players who value strategy, beauty, and the mystical bond between trainer and Pokémon. Umbreon has remained one of the most iconic and beloved evolutions since its introduction in Generation 2, representing darkness, loyalty, and the protective power that emerges when bonds are forged in shadow. What makes Umbreon instantly recognizable is its striking black body contrasted with glowing yellow rings that circle its ears, tail, forehead, and legs, creating a design that feels both mysterious and elegant. These rings aren't just decorative. According to Pokédex entries, they glow brightly when Umbreon charges power or prepares to attack, functioning as visual warnings and energy conduits that allow Umbreon to channel dark-type energy throughout its body. The design inspiration for Umbreon pulls heavily from several sources, including black cats, which carry associations with mystery and bad luck in Western folklore, but are considered protective and lucky in Japanese culture. Moon rabbits from East Asian mythology, particularly the Tsuki no Usagi legend, where rabbits are said to live on the moon, and Egyptian aesthetics, with its sleek profile and ring patterns resembling ancient Egyptian collar jewelry, and the protective symbolism of cats in Egyptian mythology. The red eyes add a menacing yet protective quality, suggesting vigilance and readiness to defend rather than outright aggression. Umbreon's colour palette, deep black with bright yellow accents, creates one of the most visually striking designs in the franchise, and its sleek, low-slung posture gives it a predatory elegance that contrasts sharply with the more upright, open postures of Espeon or Jolteon. The moonring patterns across its body have been interpreted as symbolic representations of lunar phases, with the circular rings on its ears and forehead suggesting full moons, while the bands on its legs and tail evoke crescents, tying Umbreon's entire design to the cyclical nature of night and the moon's influence over darkness. Umbreon's evolution method mirrors Espeon's exactly, requiring high friendship with the player, but only allowing evolution during nighttime hours, creating a perfect duality that became central to Generation 2's themes of balance and choice. This nighttime evolution requirement tied directly into Johto's introduction of the day-night cycle, a feature that made the game world feel dynamic and reactive to time progression. The friendship requirement reinforces that Umbreon forms not through exposure to external elements, but through loyalty and emotional bonds forged in darkness, suggesting that trust built during vulnerable nighttime hours creates something protective and enduring. This thematic connection between darkness and protection became central to Umbreon's identity, positioning it not as a malicious or evil dark type, but as a guardian that thrives in shadow. Umbreon's introduction also coincided with the debut of the dark type itself in Generation 2, making Umbreon one of the first dark types most players encountered and effectively serving as a mascot for the new type. This timing helped establish dark types as more than just villainous Pokémon, showing they could be loyal, protective, and bonded closely with trainers. From a competitive standpoint, Umbreon became one of the most reliable defensive Pokémon in the franchise thanks to its exceptional bulk. With base 95 HP, 110 defense, and a massive 130 special defense, making it one of the sturdiest non-legendary Pokémon in the game. This defensive stat spread allows Umbreon to wall both physical and special attackers with ease, shrugging off attacks that would knock out frailer Pokémon in a single hit. Umbreon's competitive role evolved around support and stalling strategies, using moves like Wish to heal itself, and teammates. Protect to stall for wish recovery and toxic damage, foul play to punish physical attackers by turning their own attack stat against them, and toxic to wear down opponents over time. This combination of bulk, recovery, and residual damage made Umbreon a cornerstone of defensive teams across multiple generations, particularly in formats where weatherless stall strategies thrived. Umbreon's hidden ability, Inner Focus, prevents flinching, a situationally useful ability that reinforces its unshakable, protective nature, but sees less competitive use than Synchronize, which reflects status conditions back onto opponents and provides valuable utility. Pokédex entries add another layer to Umbreon's defensive identity by describing it as secreting poisonous sweat from its pores when threatened, a biological defense mechanism that deters predators and reinforces the idea that Umbreon protects itself and its trainer through both passive and active means. This detail connects to Umbreon's dark typing, which in Japanese is called the evil type, but represents cunning, resilience, and unconventional fighting methods rather than true malice. Umbreon's shiny form is one of the most beloved shinies in the entire franchise, trading its standard yellow rings for bright blue, creating a color combination that feels even more mystical and moon-like than the original palette. This dramatic shift has made shiny Umbreon one of the most sought-after and admired shinies ever created, consistently topping fan polls and shiny hunting lists. In the anime, Umbreon gained significant recognition through Gary Oak, Ash's longtime rival, whose Umbreon became one of his signature Pokémon and showcased the cool, composed battling style that defines the species. Gary's Umbreon represented maturity and strategic thinking, reinforcing the idea that Umbreon appeals to trainers who value patience and careful planning over raw aggression. Umbreon also appeared through Tamao, one of the kimono girls in Johto, whose Umbreon embodied loyalty and the protective bond formed between trainer and Pokémon during nighttime. These anime appearances helped cement Umbreon's reputation as a Pokémon for skilled, thoughtful trainers who appreciate defensive strategies and emotional depth. What makes Umbreon endure as one of the most iconic evolutions is the way it represents loyalty forged in darkness, protection without aggression, and the quiet strength that comes from unwavering bonds. It's not fast or offensively powerful like Jolteon or Espeon. Instead, it thrives on outlasting opponents, supporting teammates, and standing as an immovable wall that refuses to fall. Whether glowing softly in moonlight, passing wishes to heal allies, or simply standing guard through the long hours of night, Umbreon embodies the idea that strength doesn't always mean attack power. Sometimes it means endurance, loyalty, and the willingness to protect those who matter most. Decades after its debut, it remains a fan favorite for players who value defense, strategy, and the beautiful contrast of light emerging from darkness. Leafeon has remained one of the most distinctive evolutions since its introduction in Generation 4, representing the fusion of plant and animal life in a design that feels genuinely organic and alive. What makes Leafeon immediately recognizable is how seamlessly it blends mammalian features with botanical elements, creating a Pokémon that doesn't just resemble a plant, but actually functions like one. According to Pokédex entries, Leafeon's body is capable of performing photosynthesis, absorbing sunlight through the pores in its skin and the leaf-like appendages covering its body, converting solar energy into nutrients and stamina, just like a real plant. This biological adaptation makes Leafeon one of the few Pokémon that doesn't need to eat traditional food as frequently as other species, instead thriving in environments with strong sunlight, where it can lie in open fields or forest clearings and passively regenerate energy. The design inspiration for Leafeon pulls from a hybrid concept of cat, fox, and living vegetation, with its ears shaped like large pointed leaves, its tail resembling a massive leaf blade capable of cutting through obstacles, and smaller leaf growth sprouting from various points on its body, including its legs, head, and neck. The coloring reinforces this botanical identity with earthy greens and soft cream tones that mimic fresh spring foliage, creating a palette that feels gentle, natural, and inviting. The ears, in particular, are one of Leafeon's most striking features, large, leaf-shaped, and positioned upright, like natural foliage catching sunlight, and they contribute to Leafeon's alert, attentive expression. The tail, which resembles a broad, flat leaf with visible veining patterns, acts both as a weapon and a sensory organ, with some Pokédex entries suggesting Leafeon uses its tail to detect changes in soil quality and environmental health, making it highly attuned to the ecosystems it inhabits. Leafeon's evolution method was revolutionary when introduced in Generation 4, requiring players to level up Eevee near a moss rock, a specific environmental landmark found in Eterna Forest in Sinnoh. This location-based evolution mechanic was entirely new to the Eeveelution family and reflected Generation 4's emphasis on geography, environmental interaction, and the physical world shaping Pokémon development. The moss rock itself became iconic among players, a quiet hidden feature that required exploration to discover and reinforce the idea that some evolutions emerge from connection to place rather than items or emotions. However, starting in Generation 8 with Sword and Shield, Game Freak changed Leafeon's evolution method to simply using a leaf stone, a shift that made Leafeon far more accessible, but lost some of the thematic weight of needing to seek out a specific natural landmark. This change reflected a broader design philosophy in later games, prioritizing convenience over environmental storytelling. Leafeon's introduction alongside Glaceon in Generation 4 also coincided with the physical special split, a mechanical overhaul that separated moves into physical and special categories based on the individual move rather than type, and this change benefited Leafeon significantly. As a grass type with a solid base 110 attack stat, Leafeon could finally take advantage of physical grass moves like Leaf Blade, Seed Bomb, and later Wood Hammer, giving it the offensive tools it needed to function as a physical attacker. Its base 130 defense stat makes it one of the bulkiest evolutions on the physical side, allowing it to wall physical attackers while retaliating with strong grass-type stab moves or coverage options like X-Scissor and Aerial Ace, which provides super effective hits against Psychic, Dark, Bug, Fighting, and Grass types that resist its primary moves. Leafeon's hidden ability, Chlorophyll, doubles its speed stat in harsh sunlight, transforming it from a relatively slow physical wall into a fast, aggressive sweeper under the right conditions, making it a valuable partner for sun-based teams that rely on weather strategies. This ability reinforces Leafeon's connection to sunlight and photosynthesis, showing that optimal environmental conditions unlock its full potential. Pokédex entries emphasize Leafeon's role as a natural air purifier, describing how it releases clean oxygen into its surroundings and can rejuvenate polluted environments simply by existing nearby, a trait that positions Leafeon as one of the most ecologically beneficial Pokémon in the franchise. Some entries suggest that young Leafeon often rest near sick or dying plants, their presence somehow accelerating recovery and growth, reinforcing the idea that Leafeon doesn't just coexist with nature, but actively nurtures it. The seasonal theme in Leafeon's design evokes spring and summer energy, the times of year when plant life flourishes, and its fresh, vibrant coloring mirrors the brightness of new growth and healthy vegetation. Leafeon's shiny form trades its standard green palette for a cream and tan coloring that resembles dried or autumn leaves, creating a visual representation of seasonal change and giving it a softer, warmer appearance that many collectors find appealing. Despite its strengths, Leafeon has struggled competitively due to grass type's notoriously poor defensive typing, which leaves it weak to 7 different types, including fire, ice, flying, bug, and poison, making it vulnerable to a wide range of common attacks. This defensive liability limits Leafeon's viability in higher-tier competitive formats, though it remains a solid choice in lower tiers and casual play where its physical bulk and reliable grass-type stab moves provide consistent value. What makes Leafeon endure as one of the most beloved evolutions is the way it represents harmony between animal and plant, blending biological and botanical characteristics into a design that feels genuinely alive and connected to the natural world. It's not the fastest or most offensively dominant evolution, but it thrives in environments where sunlight is plentiful, where it can purify the air, support plant life, and stand as a quiet guardian of nature's balance. Whether basking in sunlight to recharge, using its leaf blade tail to clear paths through dense vegetation, or simply resting in a forest clearing surrounded by thriving greenery, Leafeon embodies the idea that strength can come from nurturing, that power doesn't always mean destruction, and that sometimes the most meaningful contributions are the ones that help the world grow. Decades after its debut, it remains a fan favorite for players who value nature, beauty, and the gentle strength of life itself. Glaceon has remained one of the most visually striking evolutions since its introduction in Generation 4, representing the beauty and danger of ice in a design that feels crystalline, elegant, and almost otherworldly. What makes Glaceon immediately recognizable is its smooth, geometric appearance, with sharp angles and clean lines that mimic ice crystal formations and give it a distinctly mineral quality compared to the more organic designs of other Eeveelutions. The most distinctive feature is the toque-like crest on its head, a structure that resembles both a winter hat and a cluster of frozen ice crystals, adding a playful yet sophisticated element to its silhouette. According to Pokédex entries, Glaceon has the remarkable ability to freeze its fur into sharp, icicle needles, hardening the fine hairs covering its body into defensive spikes that can pierce attackers or shatter on impact like glass shards. This biological adaptation makes Glaceon's fur function as both insulation and armor, protecting it from cold environments while providing a last line of defense against predators. The design inspiration for Glaceon pulls heavily from Arctic foxes, whose thick white coats and compact bodies are perfectly adapted to freezing climates, combined with the geometric patterns found in snowflakes and ice formations, which explains the angular, faceted appearance of Glaceon's body. The coloring reinforces this frozen aesthetic, with pale blue-white fur, darker blue accents around the ears and tail, and a crystalline quality that makes Glaceon appear almost translucent in certain lighting, as though carved from ice rather than born as a living creature. Pokédex entries emphasize Glaceon's extraordinary control over its body temperature, with the ability to lower it to -75 degrees Fahrenheit, or -60 degrees Celsius, allowing it to freeze moisture in the air around it and create a phenomenon known as diamond dust, tiny ice crystals that sparkle and float through the air like glittering snow, creating a beautiful but dangerous aura that warns others to keep their distance. Glaceon's evolution method originally mirrored Leafeon's, requiring players to level up Eevee near an ice rock, a specific environmental landmark found in locations like Route 217 near Snowpoint City in Sinnoh, emphasizing the connection between place and transformation. This location-based mechanic reinforced Generation 4's focus on geography and environmental storytelling, making evolution feel like a natural response to specific climates and ecosystems. However, starting in Generation 8 with Sword and Shield, Game Freak simplified Glaceon's evolution to use in an Ice Stone, sacrificing thematic depth for accessibility and convenience, a change that made Glaceon easier to obtain, but removed the sense of discovery and environmental connection that defined its original evolution. Glaceon's introduction, alongside Leafeon in Generation 4, created a natural parallel between plant and ice, spring growth and winter stillness, life and preservation, and both represented the expansion of the Eeveelution family beyond the original 5 forms introduced in Generations 1 and 2. From a statistical perspective, Glaceon boasts an impressive base, 130 special attack, tied for the highest among all Eeveelutions, alongside Espeon, making it a powerful special attacker capable of hitting hard with Ice-type moves like Ice Beam, Blizzard, and its signature move, Freeze Dry. A unique Ice-type attack that hits Water-types super effectively instead of the usual not very effective damage, giving Glaceon valuable coverage against Pokémon that would normally resist ice moves. Its base 95 special defense provides decent bulk on the special side, allowing it to take hits from other special attackers while retaliating with powerful attacks. However, Glaceon's competitive viability has always been severely hampered by Ice-type's notoriously poor defensive typing, which leaves it weak to 4 common attacking types: Fire, Fighting, Rock, and Steel, while only resisting ice itself, making Glaceon one of the most fragile Eeveelutions defensively despite its offensive power. Glaceon's hidden ability, Ice Body, heals a portion of its HP at the end of each turn during hail or snow weather, providing valuable passive recovery that synergizes well with hail-based teams and reinforces its connection to frozen environments. Its standard ability, Snow Cloak, boosts Glaceon's evasion during hail weather, making it harder to hit, but also notoriously frustrating to face in competitive battles, which led to Snow Cloak being banned in many competitive formats due to the randomness and luck-based nature of evasion mechanics. Pokédex entries repeatedly describe Glaceon as capable of freezing opponents instantly by lowering the temperature of the air around them, with some entries claiming it can freeze an opponent's fur or skin solid in mere seconds, creating icy armor that immobilizes victims. Other entries mention that Glaceon can create ice crystals from the moisture in its breath, exhaling clouds of frozen particles that sparkle in sunlight and create the diamond dust effect that makes its presence both beautiful and dangerous. The crystalline geometric patterns in Glaceon's design extend beyond its body to its movements, with animations often depicting it moving gracefully but with a certain rigidity, as though its joints are partially frozen or its movements are calculated and precise rather than fluid and natural. This design choice reinforces the idea that Glaceon exists somewhere between living creature and frozen sculpture, beautiful but cold, elegant but distant. Glaceon's shiny form is one of the most visually appealing among the Eeveelutions, trading its standard pale blue coloring for an even lighter blue-white palette that makes it appear almost pure white, like freshly fallen snow or pristine ice untouched by impurities. And this dramatic shift has made shiny Glaceon highly sought after among collectors who appreciate its clean, ethereal appearance. What makes Glaceon endure as one of the most beloved Eeveelutions is the way it balances beauty and danger, elegance and fragility, creating a Pokémon that feels both inviting and untouchable. It's not bulky or defensively oriented like Umbreon or Vaporeon. Instead, it thrives on hitting hard with powerful special attacks, controlling the battlefield with Freeze-Dry's unique coverage, and creating an atmosphere of frozen stillness wherever it goes. Whether exhaling clouds of diamond dust, freezing moisture in the air to create sparkling ice crystals, or simply standing motionless in a snow-covered field like a living ice sculpture, Glaceon represents the serene beauty of winter and the quiet power of cold itself. Decades after its debut, it remains a fan favorite for players who value elegance, beauty, and the delicate balance between strength and vulnerability that defines ice types. Sylveon has remained one of the most iconic evolutions since its introduction in Generation 6, not only because of its charming design, but because it served as the surprise reveal of an entirely new type before Pokémon X and Y were officially released. In early 2013, Game Freak announced Sylveon without revealing its typing, creating months of fan speculation and theory crafting about what this mysterious new evolution could be. When Fairy type was finally confirmed, Sylveon became the mascot for the new type, representing a major mechanical shift in the franchise designed to rebalance the competitive metagame and introduce a type specifically created to counter the overwhelming dominance of dragon types. This role as Dragon Slayer became central to Sylveon's identity, with Fairy-type moves dealing super effective damage to Dragon, Dark, and Fighting types, while resisting all three, effectively dethroning Dragon types from their position as the most overpowered offensive type in the game. Sylveon's design pulls heavily from ribbons, bows, fennec foxes, and magical girl aesthetics, creating a visual identity that feels soft, elegant, and almost fairy tale-like. The most striking feature is the ribbon-like feelers, long, flowing appendages that extend from Sylveon's ears and neck, resembling decorative ribbons tied into bows, but functioning as sensory organs capable of detecting emotions and intentions. According to Pokédex entries, these ribbon feelers emit a soothing aura that can sense the feelings of other creatures, allowing Sylveon to detect hostility, sadness, or aggression, and respond by wrapping its feelers around aggressors to calm them down, literally stopping fights through emotional influence. This ability reinforces Sylveon's role as a peacekeeper and emotional mediator, a Pokémon that doesn't rely on brute force, but instead disarms opponents through empathy and connection. The ball-like appendages on Sylveon's left ear and around its neck add to the decorative, almost costume-like appearance, giving Sylveon a playful, fashionable quality that appeals to fans who value aesthetics and charm. The colour palette of soft pink, cream white, and pastel blue creates one of the gentlest, most inviting designs in the franchise, and the large, expressive eyes reinforce Sylveon's approachable, friendly nature. Sylveon's evolution method was revolutionary, requiring high affection built through Pokémon Amy in Generation 6, Pokémon Refresh in Generation 7, or Pokémon Camp in Generation 8, along with knowing a Fairy-type move. This affection-based evolution was entirely separate from a friendship, the stat used for Espeon and Umbreon, and required direct interaction, petting, feeding, and playing with Eevee to build a bond strong enough to trigger transformation. This mechanic reinforced the emotional themes in Sylveon's lore, showing that its evolution comes not from environmental exposure or time of day, but from genuine affection and playful interaction between trainer and Pokémon. The requirement to know a fairy-type move, such as Baby Doll Eyes or Charm, ensured that players couldn't accidentally evolve Eevee into Sylveon without intentionally engaging with fairy-type mechanics, making the evolution feel deliberate and meaningful. From a competitive standpoint, Sylveon became an instant powerhouse in Generation 6 thanks to its incredible bulk. With base 95 HP and a massive 130 special defense, making it one of the sturdiest special walls in the game, capable of tanking hits from powerful special attackers that would knock out frailer Pokémon in one hit. Its base 110 special attack provided respectable offensive presence, but Sylveon's true competitive dominance came from its hidden ability, Pixelate, which converts all normal-type moves into fairy-type moves and boosts their power by 20% in Generation 6, later nerfed to 20% in Generation 7. This ability turned Hyper Voice, a moderately powerful normal-type special move, into a devastating fairy-type nuke that could hit both opponents in doubles formats while bypassing Substitute, making Sylveon one of the most oppressive Pokémon in early Generation 6 competitive play. The combination of Pixelate Hyper Voice, Sylveon's natural bulk, and its ability to threaten Dragon types made it a staple on countless teams, and its presence helped define the early Generation 6 metagame, where fairy types were still new, and players were adjusting to the type chart changes. Sylveon's shiny form is one of the most beloved among the Eeveelutions, trading its standard pink and white colouring for a soft blue and white palette that many fans consider even more beautiful than the original, creating a design that feels ethereal, delicate, and almost dreamlike. This dramatic colour shift has made shiny Sylveon one of the most hunted and admired shinies in the franchise, consistently appearing in fan art, plushie collections, and competitive teams, simply for aesthetic reasons. In the anime, Sylveon gained significant recognition through Serena's Sylveon, which evolved from her Eevee during her journey in the Kalos region and became a central part of her Pokémon Showcase performances, a contest-like competition focused on style, coordination, and bond between trainer and Pokémon. Serena's Sylveon showcased the species' graceful, performance-oriented nature, using its ribbon feelers to create beautiful displays and demonstrating the emotional connection that defines Sylveon's character. This portrayal reinforced Sylveon's identity as a Pokémon for trainers who value beauty, expression, and emotional bonds over raw battle power, though Serena's Sylveon also proved capable in battle when needed. Pokédex entries emphasize Sylveon's ability to emit a calming aura from its ribbon-like feelers, describing how it wraps these appendages around its trainer's arm while walking to create a sense of comfort and security, and how it can stop conflicts by emitting soothing energy that drains aggression from hostile Pokémon or people. One interesting demographic detail about Sylveon is that despite its cute, feminine appearance and soft colour palette, the species has an 87.5% male gender ratio in the wild, the same as all other evolutions and all Eeveeline Pokémon, creating a humorous disconnect between visual design and in-game statistics that many fans find endearing. This gender-neutral design philosophy shows that cuteness and softness aren't exclusively feminine traits, and male Sylveon are just as valid and common as female ones. What makes Sylveon endure as one of the most beloved evolutions is the way it represents emotional connection, gentleness, and the power of empathy in a franchise often focused on strength and battle prowess. It's not fast or offensively overwhelming like Jolteon or Espeon. Instead, it thrives on outlasting special attackers, supporting teammates and disarming opponents through both mechanical bulk and thematic warmth. Whether wrapping its ribbon feelers around a trainer's arm, calming aggressive Pokémon with soothing aura, or simply standing as a symbol of the bond between human and Pokémon, Sylveon embodies the idea that power doesn't always come from force, but sometimes from connection, trust, and the willingness to care for others. Decades after its debut, it remains a fan favorite for players who value design, personality, and the emotional depth that defines the best Pokémon partnerships, proving that even in a world of fire, ice, and lightning, sometimes the strongest force is simply love. What makes the Eeveelution family so fascinating isn't just the individual forms themselves, but the patterns, connections, and mysteries that tie them all together into one of the most cohesive evolutionary families in Pokémon history. One of the most interesting mechanical details is that all 8 evolutions share the exact same base stat total of 525. A deliberate design choice that ensures no single evolution is objectively stronger than the others from a pure numerical perspective. However, the way those stats are distributed creates dramatically different roles and playstyles, with each evolution specializing in 2 particular stats, while the remaining 4 hover around moderate levels. Vaporeon focuses on HP and special attack, creating a bulky special attacker. Jolteon emphasizes speed and special attack, becoming a fast sweeper. Flareon invests in attack and special defense, though its poor move pool undermines this distribution. Espeon prioritizes special attack and speed for offensive pressure. Umbreon balances defense and special defense for pure wall strategies. Leafeon splits between attack and defense for physical tanking. Glaceon mirrors Espeon with special attack and special defense. Sylveon focuses on special defense and HP for special bulk. This stat distribution philosophy ensures that every evolution fills a distinct niche, preventing any single form from invalidating the others, and giving players genuine reasons to choose different evolutions based on team needs rather than raw power. The evolution method progression tells its own story about how Game Freak expanded mechanical complexity across generations. The original 3 evolutions, Vaporeon, Jolteon, and Flareon, used elemental stones, the simplest and most straightforward evolution trigger. Generation 2 introduced Espeon and Umbreon, which required friendship and specific times of day, adding emotional bonds and temporal mechanics. Generation 4 brought Leafeon and Glaceon, which required proximity to environmental landmarks, tying evolution to place and geography. Finally, Generation 6 introduced Sylveon, which required affection built through direct interaction, the most involved and personal evolution method yet. This progression reflects the franchise's growing mechanical sophistication and its increasing emphasis on bonds between trainer and Pokémon as central to the gameplay experience. One of the most enduring topics of fan speculation is which types are still missing from the Eeveelution roster, and whether Game Freak will eventually complete the type wheel with forms representing Dragon, Ghost, Steel, Fighting, Bug, Poison, Rock, Ground, and Flying. Dragon-type evolution remains the most requested among fans, partly because of the type's popularity, and partly because it would create a thematic parallel with Sylveon's dragon-slaying role. Ghost-type evolution would fit naturally into the light and dark duality established by Espion and Umbreon, representing death, or the spirit world as a counterpart to life and loyalty. Steel-type evolution would offer defensive utility and a modern industrial aesthetic, contrasting with the natural elements already represented. Flying-type evolution could explore aerial freedom and wind, while fighting-type could embody physical discipline and martial arts themes. Some fans have discovered references to potential beta evolutions in early game data and unused sprites, though most of these discoveries remain unconfirmed or speculative. What makes this speculation so engaging is that Game Freak has never officially ruled out future evolutions, leaving the door open for new forms in future generations, and keeping the dream of a complete type roster alive. The design philosophy behind existing evolutions shows clear patterns. They represent natural elements and forces rather than man-made concepts. With water, electricity, fire, plants, ice, darkness, light, and emotional bonds, all drawing from nature, mythology, and fundamental aspects of the world. This pattern suggests that any future evolutions would likely follow similar themes, focusing on elemental or spiritual concepts rather than mechanical or artificial ones. The shiny forms of Eeveelutions also show interesting color coordination, with Jolteon, Espion, and Leafeon all adopting various shades of green in their shiny palettes, creating an unofficial green shiny cluster that fans have noted and celebrated, while Umbreon's blue rings and the Sylveon's blue-white palette create another visual connection. In the anime, the Kimono Girls of Johto became iconic representations of the first 5 Eeveelutions, with each sister owning one evolution and showcasing its personality, battle style, and bond with its trainer. These characters helped establish Eeveelutions as symbols of individuality and choice, with each sister's personality reflecting their chosen evolution's characteristics. The Kimono Girls appeared in multiple episodes and became fan favorites, cementing their place in Pokemon anime history, and reinforcing the idea that evolutions represent different paths and philosophies rather than strict power hierarchies. In competitive play, Vaporeon and Umbreon have historically been the strongest and most consistently viable evolutions across generations, with Vaporeon's bulk and wish support making it a defensive staple, and Umbreon's incredible special defense and stall tactics keeping it relevant in nearly every generation. Espion had its moment of dominance in Generation 5, with Magic Bounce, while Sylveon dominated early Generation 6 with Pixelate Hyper Voice. Jolteon remained a reliable fast attacker in lower tiers, while Flareon, Leafeon, and Glaceon struggled due to poor typing, limited move pools, or both. Some fan communities developed an unofficial Eeveelution clause concept, a self-imposed rule limiting teams to one Eeveelution maximum to encourage diversity and prevent teams from becoming too centralized around a single evolutionary family, though this rule was never officially enforced in competitive formats. The Eeveelution family's merchandise dominance cannot be overstated, with the Eevee Heroes TCG set dedicated entirely to Eevee, and its evolutions becoming one of the most popular and expensive sets in modern Pokemon TCG history, featuring alternate art cards, full art trainers, and special illustrations that celebrated the entire family. Plushies, figures, keychains, clothing, and countless collaborations have made Eeveelutions some of the most merchandised Pokemon outside of Pikachu, with Japan's Pokemon centers frequently hosting evolution-themed events that sell out within hours. What makes the evolution family endure as one of the most beloved concepts in Pokemon is the way it represents choice, growth, and the idea that there are many paths forward, each valid and meaningful in its own way. Eevee doesn't tell you who to be. It asks who you want to become, and each evolution answers that question differently. Whether you value speed, bulk, offense, defense, beauty, power, or simply the design that speaks to you most strongly, there's an Eeveelution that fits. That universality, combined with decades of consistent quality, thoughtful design, and emotional storytelling, has kept the Eeveelution family at the center of Pokemon culture. And as you drift off tonight, surrounded by the quiet stories of these 8 evolutions and the gentle creature that contains them all, remember that potential is never wasted, that choices define journeys, and that sometimes the most powerful thing in the world is simply the promise of becoming something new. Rest well, and may your dreams be filled with the soft glow of possibility.